We just take up handfuls. Oh, and we found ones.
We have the purple warty back, and the common name really does help you identify this.
Hi everyone, my name's Emily Thievery. I'm also known as Ranger M. I'm an environmental educator and communicator, and I get to talk to a lot of different people about all things nature and conservation. I love to knowledge share, and that's what I want to do with you. So come on, let's go learn with Ranger M. Today we're going to talk about all things mussels. And no, I don't mean my mussels or the delicious mussels we can eat from the sea. I mean mussels we can find in our backyards. Well, if you live on a river, that is. I remember growing up and exploring our creeks and rivers and finding these empty shells and not really thinking about what mussels are, what they do for our environment, or how we can impact them. So today we're going to talk to the biology team from St. Clair Region Conservation Authority and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and they're going to tell us all about mussels, how we can help them, and how they help our environment, and then how we can reduce our impact on them. So I've already got my waders on, let's go meet the team. Hi Erin, thanks for joining us today and chatting about mussels. I was just wondering if you could tell us a bit about yourself, your position at St. Clair Conservation Authority, and your role in the mussel program.
At St. Clair, I'm the Director of Biology. I have been with the authority since 2009, and we do a variety of aquatic research projects.
So I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about what mussels are. Are they crustaceans? Are they invertebrates?
So they are animals. They're in the animal kingdom. They do not have a backbone, so they are invertebrates, and they are mollusks. So crustaceans are actually arthropods, but this is in the mollusk family. So most closely related to things like snails and octopus.
Oh, okay. And what exactly do mussels do for the environment?
They're a great benefit. So the mussels will filter the water. They will incorporate nutrients into their flesh, and also as they break down, they contribute those nutrients back into the ecosystem.
And when they're filtering water, is that how they eat?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So they're eating basically like chemicals and little particles, organisms from the water kind of thing?
Yeah, so they suck the water in, and they take things like algae out and get their nutrients from that, and then water comes back out again. And that's how it gets filtered.
That's awesome. So I went to school on the East Coast. I loved my fair share of mussels. Can we eat these freshwater mussels?
It's not advised. So when I've talked to people who have tried them, especially from this area, which has a historic oil industry, sometimes they can taste like liquid gelatin type petroleum.
Okay.
They're very long-lived animals. The longest one we have documented from the SID, purple warty back, is over 90 years old. So if you think of an old fish, it tends to bioaccumulate and get more contaminants in its flesh as it gets older. So it's just not a good idea for your health either.
Could you tell us a bit more about St. Clair's program with mussels in the Sydenham?
So this started back in the early 2000s, and it was a federally led initiative, understanding that we have globally rare and imperiled species here that we really want to protect. So they started with a recovery strategy. That was the first watershed-based, multi-species-based plan for the entire river, so that we could look at it, the big picture, and how do we protect the aquatic species, so the fish and the mussels that live here.
I was kind of wondering if you could show us how you find your mussels, because I always just think they're at the bottom of the river or the creek, so I don't really know how you find them.
Sure thing.
Ontario is home to how many native freshwater mussel species? A, 41, B, 55, or C, 34? Ontario is home to how many native freshwater mussel species? A, 41, B, 55, or C, 34? Ontario is home to 41 native mussel species. Thanks for joining us, Craig. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, what you do at St. Clair, and what your part is in the mussel survey?
As a conservation biologist, I specialize in aquatic ecosystems, typically rivers, working with freshwater mussels, freshwater fish, and freshwater turtles.
Today we're going to focus on mussels. So I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about how to find mussels, what you do for a survey.
Absolutely. So there's one of the methods we're going to go through today is using this strange contraption, which is a 1 by 1 meter square made of copper. We place this in strategic positions, and we then excavate to like a depth of about 15 centimeters, and we capture all the animals that we find in that area, place them in the bag.
So why exactly do you use a copper square for the quadrant?
So this offers us a quantifiable measurement that we can look at over the years and refer back to, and look at whether the density of mussels is increasing or decreasing.
Oh, okay. So what kind of stuff do you put in the bag? Is it everything? Is it all the dirt and everything, and then it kind of shakes out, or just what you like the mussels you find?
Yes, it's just the mussels we find. So we take the live specimens, but we also take the dead specimens. So when mussels pass away, the inside, the fleshy tissue decomposes, and it also acts as food for other animals. And then the shells are left, and then we can capture those so you can look at what was there previously as well.
And then when you look at the shells, what kind of data are you collecting? Are you just IDing them? Are you looking at the size of them?
A bit of both. So we, the Sydenham, there's 34 different species of mussels, so it's extremely diverse.
Wow.
So we first off identify them. Some are easier than others, some are quite complex, and then we take some biological measurements. So typically you take a measurement of the longest axis of the mussel, and this allows you to sort of put them in age classes. So we could be getting lots of older ones, lots of younger ones, and then when you look at that data, you can see if there's recruitment into the population or if the population is aging because we've just got all these old big ones.
So what makes the Sydenham so special for mussels?
It's a refuge. So if you come down to southwestern Ontario, you should be forgiven for thinking that the only thing that grows here is soy and corn. Because amongst the sea of soy and corn is this rather turbid river, so sort of a cloudy river, but within it is this incredible refuge for diversity. And that diversity comes from the different types of habitat that are within the river. So you might just look at a river and think that it's quite uniform underneath. But below the surface, there are lots of different substrate types that provide different habitat for different animals. So we have large sand and gravel deposits, we have large, huge chunks of shale, and we have different boulders. And this diversity in habitat drives the diversity in the species that we find.
So how do you determine where you put these quadrants in the river so you can find all the diversity of mussels?
It depends on the type of study you want to do. So for example, this study we can see here, this is an index site, which means it's a long-term site and is visited on multiple times. So this one is every 5 to 10 years, they'll come back, look at the mussel community and derive information from that. Now what's unique about mussels is they're sedentary. So they stay still. As an adult, they might move 1 to 2 meters in their entire life.
Wow.
And they live up to about 100 years, some species. So you have this monitor that sits there, monitoring the river for you, and you can come back and look at it and get information from it.
Is that like benthic invertebrates that tell you kind of the water quality? Do mussels also indicate the quality of water and everything?
They can for sure, and mussels are filter feeders. So they, the toxins can also build up in them. So you could do mussel studies of the tissue inside, and you could get a sort of level of toxicity within them as well.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for chatting with us today, Craig.
No worries.
Hi, Krista. Thanks for joining us. Wondering if you can show us how you find your mussels.
Because the water is very turbid, so that means that there's lots of like silt and stuff in it. It looks like chocolate milk. You can't see anything when you first view it. So the viewers help us look for those surface mussels. So what we do, we end up pushing it down to just about the floor, and then we're looking for the shape of the mussels. Sometimes we're looking for just the shells to kind of be just out of the water. Feel around, and a lot of the time we just take up handfuls. And what you're doing, oh, and we found one. So we shake off the loose dirt and we look through it. And here is a snuff box. So it's an endangered species.
So you found this mussel now. What do you do at this point?
So we sex it if it's possible. Not all of them are sexually dimorphic right
Just
away.
before you continue, what does that mean?
It just means that you can tell the difference between a male and a female. So the snuff box have what are called denticles or little teeth, and they're on the females, and the males don't have that. So that's the easy feature to tell. So this one is a male. And we measure the longest point that goes along the hinge line. So we use the calipers, and we do it in millimeters. And then this one would be 42.2 millimeters in length. And so, and then we would put them back into the water where we found them.
Awesome. Thank you, Krista.
You're welcome.
True or false? A single mussel can filter up to 40 liters of water a day. True or false? A single mussel can filter up to 40 liters of water a day. True. A single mussel can filter up to 40 liters of water in a day. They can also live up to 100 years, so that's a lot of water they're keeping clean for us and ecosystems. Hi Kelly, thanks for joining and chatting with us. I was just wondering if you could tell us a bit about yourself and what exactly you do with mussels.
So my name is Kelly McNichols-O'Rourke, and I'm a biologist with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, or DFO. And I get to be in the rivers and work with mussels all day, every day.
I'm kind of jealous. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about the programming you do for DFO.
We work for DFO Science, and we work out of the Great Lakes Laboratory for Fisheries and Aquatic Sciences, which is a huge mouthful, I know. GLIFFIS for short. And that's located in Burlington. And our job really focuses around species at risk mussels. So anything that is listed under the Species at Risk Act as endangered, threatened, or special concern. So we try and figure out where they are. There's a lot of basic information that's not known about them, although they're very important to the environments and the water that they're found in. So we look for where they are. We look at monitoring them. So how are they doing through time? Are they increasing? Are we finding more of them? Are we finding less of them? And that type of thing.
How long has you or the DFO been doing this programming?
I've been with DFO for 10 years, but the programming with mussels specifically started with the Species at Risk Act, so 2003, 2004. There were some mussel surveys done through Environment Canada and Climate Change, formerly Environment Canada, and they started 1996, and that's when mussels really came to the forefront.
Awesome.
And then we really started tackling them once the Species at Risk Act came into effect, because they are one of the most globally imperiled species, not just here in Canada or in North America, but globally they are.
People don't necessarily always think of just freshwater mussels, and I think that hurts their image. But
Yeah.
mussels are cool, so.
They really are. And we'll say we work on mussels, and people say, oh, zebra mussels? And we say, no, clams. Most people know them as clams, so that's what we work on. And they are really, really, they're good indicators of water quality. They have this amazing life cycle where they attach to a fish species. The mums have to get their eggs onto a fish species, and they're really cool animals. And a lot of people, don't even think about them because they're at the bottom of the river doing their thing.
Yeah. So you said you've been doing this for quite a while, and I'm wondering if you've seen anything crazy in that time.
So a few things. So I really, really love mussels. But I think my favorite thing about doing this job is you can come to a place like the Sydenham River, which is the hotspot for the number of mussel species in all of Canada, not just Ontario, in all of Canada. So you can come to a spot like this, you can excavate or dig out a 1 meter square, and you can find 50 animals, 10 different species, and generally in this particular river, some of those are species at risk. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that these things can get to be quite old. So we've done a lot of aging in the lab, and to get a rough age estimate of a mussel, you can actually count the rings on them, the little
like a
growth
tree.
lines, like a tree, exactly like a tree. So to get a better estimate though, what we actually do is we find shells in the river and along the bank, and we take them back to the lab. They're just shells, there's no animals inside them. And we actually do a very thin cut of the shell. So then we count the number of lines that we see in there, and that will give us a really good estimate of how old they are. So something like this animal, this is a purple worryback. It's a threatened species. And this animal here could be 25 or 26, or it could be over 90 years old. So I think that's the thing that really gets me excited, is a lot of these animals have been here for a really long time.
That's crazy.
And in that length of time, they may have only moved a few square meters in their entire lives as adults. So that's really, really cool to me.
So I was wondering, when we're talking about aging mussels and all of that, if you could tell us a bit about their life cycle. I don't really know how they reproduce, how they have babies. You said that they just kind of like get released, and latch on to fish. That sounds pretty neat.
This is our claim to fame with mussels, because they're
Clam
not
to fame.
clam to, there we go, exactly. So they're non-cute, cute and cuddly. They don't have fur, they don't have big cute eyes. But what they do have is this amazing life cycle where we have male and female mussels. And once the female mussel gets pregnant, she actually has to get those babies onto a fish. So she has to basically spit those eggs onto a fish. If it's the right fish species, then they're like little Pac-Man, the babies. And so what they do is they clamp onto the fish and they go for a little ride. And then once they're fully developed, they drop off the fish and hopefully land in, substrate that they like or sediment that they like and live happily ever after. So it's an amazing life cycle, and that also gets into why a lot of these species are so vulnerable and why so many of them are species at risk, is because any threat, whether it's pollution, invasive species, can impact a whole bunch of different stages of that life cycle. So maybe, the mom mussel gets her babies onto the fish, but then maybe that fish dies. Maybe the mom mussel is impacted by pollution or something like that. So she doesn't release as many of those babies as she once could. So there's all of these different areas where this life cycle can be impacted by a number of different threats. So it's not just one thing acting on them, it's a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
And then you tack on the fact that they can live to be, over 90 years old on the long end. And I guess I should say some of them only live to be 6 or 7 years old. But still, that's a lot of time to be filtering in, extra nutrients and all of that stuff. So that's what makes them so vulnerable as well.
Is there a reason why they have to latch on to fish?
They have to do that to complete their life cycle. And we think that's because it allows them to move upstream and downstream. Because as I said, an adult mussel might only move a few square meters in their entire lifetime. So when you are attached to a fish move much more, right? Fish can get out of the way if there's been if there's pollution in the water or whatever, but a mussel can't. And so if the babies are hitching a ride on the fish, then they can move upstream and downstream, and they can move further.
I guess you're more likely to find them that way when you do your surveys.
Yes.
So I'm curious as to what we can do for our mussels and help them recover.
I think things like things as simple as educating yourself on mussels. These aren't just little rocks. My husband likes to call them rocks. He says, you work on rocks all day. And I was like, yeah, but they're really awesome. So I think is educate yourself. Know that they're there and know that anything that goes into the river is going to impact them. Things like trying to reduce pollution, recycling, things like that. And then if you do see a mussel and you want to report it to us, we do have an app. It's called the Clam Counter app, and you can go onto it. It's free to download on your devices, Apple and Android. And it will help you identify an animal. And at the end of it, you can take some pictures and then you can report it. So maybe it's a new location and maybe we need to go out there and do some more surveys. So that's another way that it's kind of getting some citizen science involved as well. So that's another way. And that app was developed by us and the Toronto Zoo. So it's really cute. It's got some good graphics, it's got some good animation and lots of pictures.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I think we should go and see if the team has found any cool mussels.
Excellent. Let's do it.
Did you know the East Branch of the Sydenham River has been designated as one of 13 freshwater key biodiversity areas in Canada by the International Union for Conservation of Nature? Learn more at sydenhamriver.on.ca. Did you know the East Branch of the Sydenham River has been designated as one of 13 freshwater key biodiversity areas in Canada by the International Union for Conservation of Nature? Learn more at sydenhamriver.on.ca. Well, it looks like the team's been busy and you have quite a few to show us. I was just wondering if you could tell us what these mussels are and kind of how you tell the difference.
Yeah, for sure. Because we do have 41 different species in Ontario. There's quite a lot. And I think at this particular site, we found probably 18 or 19 species over the last couple of days. But we have here the northern riffle shell, and you can see these fine green rays on it. And it's almost like a yellowy orange color. So that's a really distinguishing feature for these. The neat thing about these is that they are a globally imperiled species. There's only 4 populations that are actually reproducing in North America right now, and the Sydenham River has one of the best ones. So that's really exciting. This is a female. We got a female here and then a male here. And sometimes you can tell the difference between the males and females just by their shell.
Wow, okay.
And then you're holding some cute little ones too. So this is the foot. This is the muscular foot. So this is how adult mussels move. They stick that foot out into the river bottom, pull their shell back onto it.
Wow, what a color too.
Yeah. So when I was saying they only move a few square meters in their lifespan, that's why. It's a very slow process. But this is an elk toe. This is a common species, and you can see that the rays on this one are quite a bit thicker. We have the purple warty back, and the common name really does help you identify this because you can see all of these little warts on it. On the inside of the shell, it's purple. It can be light purple, dark purple. So here we have a juvenile kidney shell, which is an endangered species in Canada. And you can actually see that when these guys are really small, they have this byssal thread. So it's just like an elastic string. And what they do is they anchor it to rocks, or they attach it to rocks so that they don't float downstream because they're so small. So as juveniles, we typically see this byssal thread with them.
Wow, this is awesome. And I can't help but notice that the names of our freshwater mussels are just so very unique.
They
and
really
a little
are.
weird.
Yep.
So I'd love to know what your favorite mussel is.
Oh, so my favorite mussel is the 3-horned wartyback, and it's a mussel. It's about this big. This is not one, but it has got 3 huge bumps on it. Only 3, always only 3. And when I first started working on mussels in my undergrad, it was the first one I could confidently identify. So it has now become my favorite. Unfortunately, we don't see too many of those, but I always get excited when we do.
All right, let's go find out other people's favorite mussel species. All right, what's your favorite mussel?
My favorite mussel is the snuff box
Oh, and why is that?
because it attaches to the end of log perches and it spews its larva onto the log perch, and it's super cool. It's very alien. It's awesome.
Thank you. All right, what's your favorite mussel?
The maple leaf. It's really easy to tell apart because it's got 2 lines of bumps down it.
Awesome. I just would like to know your favorite mussel.
I'd have to say a pink heel splitter because it's pink.
Awesome. So what's your favorite mussel?
It's a purple warty back because it's pretty.
Look how cute. What's your favorite mussel species?
So my favorite mussel species is the northern riffle shell, and one of the main reasons for that is that it is a globally imperiled mussel, and the Sydenham River is one of the best remaining reproducing populations on the entire planet.
That's truly amazing. Thank you. So what's your favorite mussel species?
I think the deer toe just because it's pretty.
Oh, thank you. So what is your favorite mussel species?
Our favorite mussel species is the snuff box. So this is a sexually dimorphic species, which means we can tell the difference between the males and the females.
So the female has the denticles, which are like teeth on their shell, and they actually grab the log perch, which is a fish. It'll grab it on the face.
So what's your favorite mussel species?
My favorite mussel species is a pocketbook, but this is my second favorite, which is a big old mucket.
Thank you. So what's your favorite mussel species?
My favorite mussel species is the elk toe because of the way that it is.
Perfect. So we learned a lot about mussels today, from their reproduction to what exactly they do for their environment and how they have very unique and weird names. But we got to remember not to get hung up on the weird names, and mussels are imperative to our environment. So thanks for joining me today, and I just wanted to let you know my favorite mussel is the rayed bean. See you in nature.